Hi guys, here we go again. Round two of our little web lectures. So hopefully I'm a little better at this time around. Okay, so yesterday I felt like in the last video I didn't really cover appeasement as well as I should have because we were running out of time. So I just want to make sure you understand that appeasement is when you give in a little bit to a bully to try to prevent another fight. So keep in mind, Europe had just gone through World War I 20 years before, so they want to prevent another fight. We talked about how France and Britain and Germany basically lost an entire generation of young men, and so they're not really looking to get into another war. That's why they give in to Hitler at Munich. Now, historically, we look back on this as a massive mistake, especially when you consider that militarily, France and Britain could have stopped Hitler at that point. But by the time he invades Poland, which is going to start the war, the German army is much too powerful to easily stop. So we look back on that. We look back at Neville Chamberlain, and also John F. Kennedy's father, Joseph Kennedy, was involved with that as the ambassador to Great Britain from the United States, and we call those people appeasers, and they are not looked kindly in history, especially looked on kindly, I should say, especially Neville Chamberlain, who led the Munich conference and appeased Hitler. So that's the significance of appeasement. And sometimes in the news today, when we're dealing with North Korea or Iran, people bring up the word appeasement, and they want to make sure we're not appeasing these people who, these nations that can be seen as bullies. So that's your significance there. Now let's jump into some of the major events of World War II, and I'm going to run through these again really fast. So I expect you to pause it if you want to write some of this down. Some of these slides are very wordy, but I wanted to make sure I got a lot of info out there for you. I wouldn't worry about writing everything you see down as long as you get the general idea. First thing we've got, there's another picture of Neville Chamberlain after the Munich conference. He gave that speech where he said, "I've given us peace for our time." He gave it outside his airplane right after it landed back in Great Britain. And we talked about Czechoslovakia. So the event that starts the war is the invasion of Poland. Okay, Hitler and Stalin do not like each other. We talked about Hitler is a fascist, Stalin is a communist. Those two ideals do not get along with each other, even though in practice they're very similar. They have complete control over their populations. But they do not like each other. But they agree to split Poland in the Nazi-Soviet pact. So actually Russia and Germany invade Poland. And this is the event that's going to start the war. Both France and Great Britain declare war on Germany when this happens. So whatever you want to write down there, you can. Shortly after Poland, because Hitler, the German army, they don't have to worry so much about Poland. They leave some troops there, but they turn around and they focus on France. So they invade France. And this is when a few things happen. One, and we'll talk about this more Monday and Tuesday when I get back in class, but this is when the event at Dunkirk happens, and about 300,000 troops are evacuated from France after they're surrounded by Germans. It's a important event in world history and in European history especially. They made that movie about it last year. We'll look at some clips. We'll talk about that more next week. And also we'll look at a speech by the new prime minister after Neville Chamberlain, Winston Churchill. In fact, his first day on the job was the day that Germany invaded France. So we'll talk more about that next week. But just so you get the general idea of the timeline of events, France comes after Poland. And here we have Hitler in front of the Eiffel Tower. Look, Mom, I'm in front of the Eiffel Tower. What a dork. All right, so Then after Germany controls France, they begin what's known as the Blitz, okay, or the Battle of Britain. And this is where Germany, to invade a country, to an island especially, you have to have what's called air superiority. God, I just blanked. Air superiority. So you have to have air superiority. So Germany starts bombing Britain relentlessly for 3 months, and they are... this is where you get a lot of the propaganda in Britain, the keep calm and carry on sign, which is actually not one of the more used propaganda posters, but the entire point of this was to gain air superiority to invade the island. But Germany was never able to accomplish this. This is what is seen as one of Great Britain's greatest victories, is that they were able to fight off the Nazis. And another point of this was to lower British morale, which absolutely fails. British morale is at an all-time high. They are more resolved to take on Hitler, take on the Nazis. Part of that has to do with not Neville Chamberlain, Winston Churchill, which I'll show you one of his famous speeches. Unfortunately, I can't, with this software, I can't play the speech and the audio at the same time, so I can't play that here, but I'll show you next week. A couple of pictures from Battle of Britain. As you can see, this is in London. Most of the buildings in this picture completely demolished. This is a picture of the Thames, and a cat just jumped up on my desk. And that's Tower Bridge. That's right by the Tower of London. And you can see smoke. I know it's black and white, it's hard to see, but that's smoke all down the river from recent bombings. Here you have a couple of the airplanes used. Of course, you had the big bombers too from Germany, but that's a German fighter on the bottom right there, and then that is the British Spitfire in the top left. So I put that in there because I love the Spitfire. It's like the coolest looking airplane ever built. So I thought I'd show you guys that. Another important event during the Battle of Britain is the king. Okay, this is Queen Elizabeth II's father and her mother. They did not leave their palace. They stayed in London, even though they were asked to evacuate the city to be safe. So their palace was bombed. They were in the Battle of Britain with their people, and this was seen as a huge morale boost for the German people, that the king and the queen had stayed behind and they were in the fight with them. Okay, so invasion of Russia. So Hitler, of course, betrays Stalin, turns around and invades Russia in the winter. And we studied what happened to Napoleon when he did that. So this is also not going to go well for Hitler. And I'm not going to read everything there. So if you want to read that, pause it, write it down. But basically, they will get almost to Moscow before the Russians start pushing them back. And we'll talk about an important event there. Do not write down all of this. This is U.S. history stuff, but we'll cover it because this is the event that's going to get the United States into the war. Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. We'll go into this in a little bit more detail, but again, we're not U.S. history, so we only need to talk about this to the extent that this is what brings the United States into the war. And the United States had been selling some arms to Great Britain and trying to help them out financially while the war was going on, but it's not until December of 1941, that the U.S. officially declares war on Japan, and Germany then declares war on the United States as an ally to Japan. So this will bring the United States into World War II. Okay, just an example of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Like I said, I'm not going to go into detail on this. Then shortly after Pearl Harbor, again, this is more of a U.S. history event. The Battle of Midway takes place. But I'm going to talk about this with you guys, even though it's not in your terms, this is the most important battle of World War II. Okay, had the United States lost the Battle of Midway, Japan would have completely controlled the Pacific. And if Japan completely controlled the Pacific, the United States would have had to pull troops out of Europe fighting Hitler, or getting ready to fight Hitler. They would have had to pull troops out of the European theater and bring them back to the United States to protect the West Coast against Japan. So the fact that the U.S. wins the Battle of Midway and cripples the Japanese fleet, especially their aircraft carriers, they are able to kind of run the table in the Pacific from here on out. This is the beginning of the end of Japan in the Pacific. The U.S. will start shortly after this what's called island hopping, where they start hopping from one island to another, getting closer to Japan. And then eventually they're going to drop 2 nuclear weapons on Japan. We'll get to that later, though. Okay, little picture. It was a sea battle. It was mostly fighters and torpedo bombers and aircraft carriers. So there's not a lot of great pictures. There's also not a lot of great videos. Some of these other battles I can show you kind of some videos from movies based on the battle. You can kind of get an idea of what's going on. Midway doesn't really have a great 5 to 10 minute clip I can show you. Okay, Battle of Stalingrad. Battle of Stalingrad is the most important battle of World War II. So, did I just say that earlier? Okay, here's the deal. Several battles can be looked at as the most important battle of World War II. Some people say Midway, some people say Stalingrad. Stalingrad is kind of the same thing as Midway, but with Russia and Germany, and it's on land. So had Germany won the Battle of Stalingrad, they would have controlled all of Russia's oil, and that's where Stalingrad is. It's near their oil fields. So the significance of this battle is that it's one of the most important, maybe the most important battle of World War II, and I'll let you guys kind of write down some of that stuff there. But it has to do with controlling Russia's oil. Okay, and it is, in world history, it is the deadliest battle that has ever happened. You lose a round, I'm kind of rounding this off, but each side, Germany and Russia, lose about 1 million troops in this one battle. Okay, a couple of pictures from Stalingrad. Okay, the invasion of Normandy. This is where the Allies, the U.S., Great Britain, Canada, the most famous 3 involved in this battle, storm the beaches of Normandy. They invade France to start to take back France from Germany. This can be seen as the most important battle of World War II, okay? Because this is what's going to make Germany fight on 2 fronts. This is, again, kind of the beginning of the end of Germany at this point. Russia's starting to really kick their butt in the east, and now the British, the U.S. and the Canadians are going to start to really kick their butt in the west. Okay, I'll let you write down some of that. This also can be seen probably as the United States, probably one of their greatest victories, if not the greatest victory that the United States has been involved in. It's a massive undertaking. The U.S. takes the lead on it, and they win the battle. They take the beach at Normandy. I'll show you more pictures of this and a video of it. Okay. Battle of the Bulge. This one's kind of hard to explain without the map. Do I have it on there? Okay, Battle of the Bulge. This, actually, I'll let you read or write some of that, and we're going to skip over that because I'm going to show you what it means by bulge when I show you a map. But we'll do that in class. This is another United States victory, but happens in Europe, so it's part of European history. Also, the other allies are involved. It's not just the United States. And I've got several video clips for that. Yalta, we'll cover real quick. I only have 20 seconds. Yalta. This is where the big 3, Stalin, FDR, Churchill, this is where they meet. You'll probably recognize this picture from the world history textbook. It's on the cover. This is where they meet and decide what to do with Germany after the war. That's the significance of Yalta Conference. We'll talk more about that later.